It's called to order the Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 23rd. Can we please get roll call?
Commissioner Scarborough Echo,
Present.
Commissioner Santos,
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Present.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Present. Okay, time for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Scarborough Echo, will you lead us?
Sure.
This is the moment in our agenda to open up for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any comments?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay. Reviewing our minutes from July 9th, I'll entertain a motion if no one has any edits.
I raise a motion. I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Scarborough Echo,
Can I vote since I wasn't? I'm not abstaining.
Commissioner Santos,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Opening up our public hearing item 5.1, a conditional approval for Stallion Estate.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and welcome Commissioner Scarborough Echo. My name is Nicolas Huitron, Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. Tonight, I will be presenting the tentative parcel map number 39093 for the Stallion Estate, submitted under case file number Plan TPM 250010. The applicant, Andrew McClurg of Luxury Desert Escapes LLC, is requesting approval to subdivide an approximately 5-acre parcel located at 80700 Avenue 50 and is identified under Assessor's Parcel Number 602-080-003. The subject property is located north of Avenue 50 and west of Madison Street. It is surrounded by rural, residential, and estate-style development, including the Ventana housing development to the west. The general plan land use designation for the site is Desert Estates Transition, which supports large lot, low density residential uses of 3 dwelling units per acre. The zoning designation is Desert Estates Transition 3, consistent with the general plan. The proposed parcel configuration complies with the minimum lot size and use requirements under the Unified Development Code. The tentative parcel map 39093 proposes to subdivide the site into 2 parcels. Parcel 1, being 3.12 acres, will contain the existing single-family residence, casita, garage, barn, recreational improvements, and equestrian facilities. And Parcel 2, which is 1.52 acres, is undeveloped and will include recorded access and utility easements for future use. No new development is being proposed as part of this request. Staff has reviewed the proposal for consistency with the City of Indio's General Plan 2040, the Unified Development Code, and the Subdivision Map Act. The project meets all applicable requirements and qualifies for a categorical exemption under CEQA Guidelines Section 15315, which applies for minor land divisions. All required findings can be made, and appropriate conditions of approval have been included to ensure compliance. With that, staff recommends approving Resolution 2115, conditionally approving the tentative parcel map number 39093 for the Stallion Estate. Thank you for your time. I am available to have, if you have any questions, and the applicant doesn't have a presentation, but they're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huitron. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing and see if the applicant would like to come up and address us.
Hi,
I'm Jennifer Reynes. I'm the project manager for the Stallion Estate. I read your staff report. I agree with everything in there. It's a simple lot split, single-family dwelling, and I appreciate your time in approving it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay. Are there any public comments on this item?
There are none.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any comment? No? Deliberation? Okay, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Scarborough Echo,
Yes.
Commissioner Santos,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. All right, moving on to our action items. We have a presentation from our Economic Development Director, Miguel Ramirez Cornejo.
Yes, I just wanted to do a quick introduction before Miguel comes up. So we've been trying to do this presentation for several months. A little bashful in saying that, but the time has arrived. And so our Economic Development Director will go ahead and do the presentation. But I wanted you to just know, even though Miguel will be speaking about this topic, is really what triggered this is back in February, there was a gas station, the Maverick, that the Planning Commission denied. As part of that discussion, there was an interest, which ended up going to the City Council. After the project was denied, it was ultimately approved, but there was a directive from the Council to come back to the Planning Commission and study this issue as far as, how certain uses come into town and, some of the factors are included. And then eventually, so not tonight, we will bring some data and some more analysis on potentially limiting gas stations. But right now, this is just kind of an overall presentation solely from an economic standpoint. So with that in mind, I wanted to bring Miguel.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, Commissioner, members of, or Commission. Let me start all over. Chairperson and members of the Commission. My name is Miguel Ramirez Cornejo. I'm the Economic Development Director, and tonight we're going to go a little over gap analysis, so generality, and we'll look a little bit into gas stations, but not pick apart exactly what gas stations are, because that will come in the future, as Brian mentioned. So how the market drives business growth in Indio. So what the role is of economic development is to influence, not control. Cities like Indio don't necessarily choose businesses all the time. Businesses choose city, especially when it comes to larger corporations. They have their teams, they have their data that they pay for, they have their consultants. Our role is to provide some of the data that we have, and we use a service called Placer AI, which measures cell phone data of where people are going to, where they're coming from, spending habits, all of that stuff in order to help businesses, mostly small business owners, because they don't have access to this stuff. It's very expensive. But we try to inform a small business owner on a potential location. And then the business role is to ultimately make the decision. It's their wallets, it's their shareholders, which are going to hold them responsible. But we don't necessarily control who goes where. Now, the Planning Commission does have, and planning does have a say in kind of what can go where and what. But as far as economic development, we're just trying to support the local economy. So understanding the market forces, and this is kind of, I guess, a little bit of an economics background, is supply is a number and types of businesses operating in in Indio. Demand, consumer spending, unmet needs, lifestyle preferences. That is something a lot businesses are focusing on, is lifestyle preferences. It's no longer the basic demographics that they're looking into because people are a lot more mobile nowadays. You see something on Instagram that's an hour and a half away, guess what? You're going to drive and go take a picture with it, or you're going to go taste it. And that's kind of driven by social media. And the gap, the difference between supply and demand. Market gaps aren't created by a lack of zoning, they're created by unmet consumer demand. So Indio's demand outpaces the supply in just about every sector in consumer spending. So there is a total of $2.5 billion that the demand is there. The supply is only across, again, all retail and consumer spending, $1.07 billion. So leaving a gap of $1.18 billion of unmet demand. And again, that's across 30 retail and food service industries. So here I give a demand that exists on almost every sector, and here's some very specifics. the unmet demand for automotive dealers is $184 million. And if you look throughout, towards the bottom, the second to last is gas stations, 17.93, almost $18 million in unmet demand for the city of Indio. The only thing that we're pretty close on, that we're doing fairly well on, is grocery stores. Our gap is really only let's say round up $4 million, and that's really one grocery store. And it's highlighted there. So gas station market signals. 88% of adults purchased gasoline in the last 6 months. 74% of households rely on cell phones only, reflecting a high mobile population. Again, people drive to places to experience, to taste, to do different things. $110 million, over $110 million in annual consumer spending on gas station purchases in Indio already. Now, the demand for fuel and auto-related service is consistent, and it's volume-driven. Gas stations in Indio serve both local residents and steady stream of commuters and travelers. Here in the city of Indio, annually, we have roughly 1.4 million people who come just to visit Indio. They step foot in the boundaries of Indio. Not just that, but we are really the only city that has development on both sides of I-10, making it very attractive for multiple types of businesses, including gas stations. Why this matters to businesses is because they analyze a micro trends. Again, they don't look at the typical, just regular demographics that everyone has always told, this is our population, this is our household income. Because people are a lot more mobile and their spending is a lot different, a lot of it is through credit also. Something that you can't necessarily rely on in the past. They looked at balances in savings and kind of the financial health of someone. You can't really determine a lot of that information because now a lot of people are spending on credit and relying on credit in order to make some of their purchases. So Indio's consumer spending and forecasting growth, here's just a couple examples. Entertainment and recreation by 2030 will increase another $16 million. Food away from home, another $17 million by 2030. Health and beauty is also consistent on an upward trend. Now, let's look at site selection. So site selection, every large business has a site selection team. There's even a conference for site selectors that they go to this conference and they learn the latest trends and things like that. So they don't just look at the land and say, hey, location, location, location. That really means different things. It's the actual physical location, the location in terms of demographics and psychographics, and then their potential. So they follow a checklist or prescription, like business that we commonly get asked for is Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's, their prescriptions are very secretive. You can try to guess what their prescriptions for site selection is, but it's absolutely not that. Trader Joe's even put out a podcast where they talk about how they choose stores, and it's very vague, but it's very deep into what they look at. So common site selection filters are drive time across target consumer bases, and even drive time is not necessarily a main factor anymore. So I don't know if you've all seen in the past, they did the ring radiuses of 3, 5, 10 miles. That is now outdated, and now it's either true drive times. So if one area of the city gets more traffic than others, it skews how far people come from and what that drive time actually looks like. So minimum daily traffic counts, proximity to complementary service businesses like retail clusters, visibility for major corridors and intersections, median incomes, age and household, that's kind of traditional. Permitting timelines and ease of approvals. This is something that the development community, it spreads like wildfire. I have seen it happening in the Inland Empire, more towards western Riverside County, where now cities are pushing back on warehousing and industrial. That is the reason why you're starting to see the growth further east, because those cities over there have said, we've had enough, and now the market is driving it further east. Site selection and how businesses decide. So here I have an example of Circle K, what their site selection. I tried to look for specifically Maverick. It's not out there in the public. They're not large enough like Circle K, but they look with roughly 40,000 people within a 3-mile radius, traffic counts of at least 20,000 vehicles per day, parcel sizes, daytime population. They prefer, some of them, like Circle K, preferred pads near grocery. This is a little bit different. If the market matches the checklist or the prescription, the deal moves forward. It's purely an economic decision. What we do with this data is that we promote local market opportunities to site selectors and brokers. I go to a conference every May in Las Vegas, ICSC, and it is every single corporation that you could think of, hotel, restaurants, retail, they are there, and I go and I pitch. I'm in sales. I pitch Indio and why you should choose Indio. So just about every retailer is there. I package the data specifically for retailers, for hotels, and for different things. And what I highlight is their potential return on investment. Every business that comes to Indio is investing in our community. And so I have to show their potential value to this, to not just the city, but in return, how they can get their money back, because ultimately, it goes to their wallet. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. Yeah.
Please.
Where it showed that we still, the slide that showed how much demand we still have for gas station right there, 17.93. Is that number, how do you come up with that number? Is it the growth rate of the city, the number of cars, the age? I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of numbers that come up to say, this is what we think we're gonna need in what, the next 5 years, the next 2 years,
Yeah,
today?
so a lot of these, there's a lot of places where you could get this data point. The one that I found the most accurate is through Placer AI. The reason why is because Placer AI has partnered with over 500 apps that track just about everything. Consumer spending, where you're going. If you go to a 7-Eleven, where'd you go after? If before you came to 7-Eleven, where you came from. They've partnered with the banks to get some of that credit information, and they aggregate all this other stuff. So it's also not just our population that is the unmet demand of the gas station. It's the people that come to Indio and that travel up and down the corridor. We're fortunate enough to have development on both sides of I-10. And not just that, but gas stations like Maverick, we don't have a gas station right now that serves business automobiles, so large trucks, semis. We don't have a gas station that really is not solely, but focuses on those types of trucks. And so that's why I'm assuming Maverick chose that site.
Mr. Let me just go to Nicole. The numbers that you're showing here, the 17.93 million, that is just for the city of Indio?
That is just for the city of Indio, yes.
Okay.
Through Placer AI, I am able to geofence just the city boundaries, and that's what it shows.
Got it. Okay. So the Desert Sun published an article in April 28 of 2023 where we gave them numbers, and the 5-year projected numbers then were 18 million and then 72.9 million in the next 5 years. Does that mean that there's been a decline in demand?
Not necessarily. It's different data points. Esri, they do a whole lot of business analytics also. I found that theirs are a little skewed, their data points, and so because everyone has a cell phone, everyone carries a cell phone, and they've partnered with 500 apps, this is the number that I feel is one that's a little more accurate. Esri takes a lot of stuff out of the census. We all know sometimes census doesn't capture everyone, and people who don't respond to the census aren't figured for that, but just about everyone has a cell phone and kids. So this one I find more reliable. This is the current demand. It's not projecting out the future. Now for the future, Esri and that type of thing can kind of track the forecast on that, and that one's a little more reliable for extending the forecast on that. But for right now, I firmly believe that this one's more accurate.
That's helpful. Go ahead. Yeah, no? Okay, I still have some more questions. No.
Go ahead, I have another one too.
Okay, no, please.
No, go ahead.
I'm interested to learn more about this site selection, if we could go to that slide. It looks like you were looking at Circle K and what they look into, and it says strong daytime population, employment, schools particularly. How does that factor in then if we have in our general plan something that's inconsistent with this? You know, and I hear you what you're saying as far as economic development is concerned. We just want to get the economic development. We're not talking about land use. That's not within the purview of your department. But I'm just curious, is that something that you and your department are taking into consideration when these types of businesses are taking this type of consideration, and our general plan says we don't want them near schools, is that something that you and Brian, maybe in the planning department, are talking about?
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we do is I essentially hook them and say, hey, are you interested? And sometimes some of these businesses, like Maverick, they make a decision on their own, and then they tell us, and I find out through our partnership with planning. It's like, hey, Maverick's coming, and then we make a contact. But Brian and I, or the planning department and I, have a really great relationship where it's like, hey, this business is interested. I walk over, hey, we have this potential business at this potential site. What does the zoning say for it? All of the planning staff has been extremely helpful in saying, we might have to do this, this, or that. And I am a solutions-driven person, so if the answer is no, it's okay, no, but is there a way we can do this? Is there a way we can do that? Again, it's a conversation, it's a partnership that we have in discussing these types of things, absolutely.
I just wanted to, if I could add, so in regards to general plan or the zoning, you won't see in a zoning ordinance like Circle K prohibited. Obviously, we recently prohibited mini storage, self-storage in order to promote job growth in the city. But, I mean, that's part of our job as far as the community development department, specifically planning, is when a proposal comes in to make sure it's consistent with the zoning and the general plan. So obviously some factors come into play, like the disadvantaged communities and things like that was brought up as part of the Maverick station. But in general, yeah, that's our job, to make sure that when we present it to you that it is consistent. If it's not, then the project either needs to be modified or the project won't come to you because it's inconsistent.
Thank you, that's really helpful. And then I have questions more, and I don't know if this wasn't part of your presentation, but current number of gas stations in our city per capita, and then in comparison to other cities nearby. I don't know if you have those numbers, but that's where my questions are going. So, but before we get there, maybe I'll let Commissioner Ortiz.
So I just want to say thank you so much. This is a very well put out presentation, and it seems that you're very good at it, and then you enjoy what you do. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your service to the city of Indio. My question is, like, do we as a city, as like you being the economic development manager, do we offer incentives to certain type of businesses to make them like more attractive to the city of Indio, or like how that works?
In certain instances, we do, and we have in the past, but it has to make sense for the city of Indio. It has to be a win-win for both. We don't just offer them to any retailer or anything. It's typically in areas where we're trying to focus on growth. One of those is TOT, so hotels. We know we have 1.4 million people coming into the city. We've heard from our partners at Golden Voice that there's still a lack of 5,000 rooms in Indio for their festival goers. So the demand in the market is there. So yeah, sometimes we do, like our auto mall dealers, that is something that we get creative on, because they are such a huge sales tax generator for us, and they're so important to the city. So we can enter those conversations, but it just depends on what our strategic focus is.
So I'm back to the 17.93. So with the, electric cars are definitely not going to take over the world tomorrow, but they are taking big chunks of the market. So when you look at these companies that you're getting the data from, what does the future look like? I mean, is it going to be that no matter what, the growth is going to, the electric cars are never going to outpace the growth of needing the gas stations? Or I mean, what do the numbers say, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Or is it just the growth is going to keep going? Doesn't matter.
Well, the current forecasted demand for gas in Indio specifically is still trending up, as the numbers that you saw earlier this year still show trending up. That is a very tough question to answer, because there are California mandates that go electric, but here specifically within the city of Indio, we also have a larger problem to even meet those mandates, and that is power, availability of power. We are working towards it, but that also can, skew how long the forecast, when will be the tipping point. For the foreseeable future, from the data that I've seen, it's still heavy on gas, yes.
So when piggyback from what Commissioner Franz said, what about the demand for electric chargers? Like, do we have any data? Do we know, like, are we meeting that demand? Like, do we have, like, any information about that?
I don't have any information specifically on that, but I think through California code, there is a requirement of infrastructure on any new buildings to have at least the ability to install electric chargers. I don't have currently where we meet the demand. I know Tesla just opened a major, or not just, it's almost 2 years now, a pretty massive charging station up in North Indio at Indio Town Center. We do get approached by other vendors to do them, so we know that there is some there. It is hard because, first of all, again, power, the availability of power currently, and you have to have a willing property owner in order to accept that, because a lot of them are going into existing sites to retrofit existing sites, and sometimes the cost outweighs the benefit on it, or
And
the
ju-
return on investment can be longer.
And just to add to that, so the planning division is continuing to be approached by developers who want to put chargers, a charging system in. But it can be challenging, as Miguel mentioned, regarding the power supply for those charging station developments, if you will. So we work with them closely and try to, determine to the best of our ability, working with a variety of people, if there is going to be capacity to install those chargers. But it is a high demand. We are seeing several people do pre-applications. They call, they have meetings. And actually, just near the Maverick, they're interested in putting a charging station. Now, will it go in? We don't know yet. But it is constantly coming up in the department. So just wanted to add that.
And just a bit more information in regards to the charging stations, which I was enlightened about a month ago. For 16 stations, it's an equivalent of 4 megawatts, which is a decent amount of power needed. So that's one, again, going back into the infrastructure, not having it currently, but working towards it. I think, again, adding more additional EV chargers would be beneficial. But again, the infrastructure will be the first thing that the city, we have to work on.
Yeah, in terms of megawatts, 4 megawatts is a lot. A hotel is right about 1 megawatt to power. So for us who have currently not as much capacity to add additional, it's that balancing act. Is a hotel, which brings revenue to the city, where a charging station right now, there is no tax associated to that.
Great. I'm going to reframe my earlier question because I know that you have what you're doing is limited and it's not about the land use. But how much does the current state of gas station per capita influence your decision to go out and get more of these types of businesses? Is there anything in your department now that says, hey, we should look at that and see if there's a balancing act that we should be doing?
To be very honest with you, gas stations is not something that I go out and attract. The market really drives gas stations. I focus on hotels, on retailers, larger retailers, smaller retailers, small business owners, and restaurants. The community has expressed the need for more sit-down restaurants, and so that's who I spend a lot of time speaking to. But gas stations, I really do not attract any gas stations. It's mostly I hear through planning that, hey, this gas station is potentially interested. Cool. Do they need any information? I can supply it. But I don't think in my career I have ever called a gas station owner to say, hey, why don't you come in? Because the market really drives that, especially they're very location specific.
That's actually illuminating. So you're saying we currently right now in our city through our land use are attracting the level and the amount of gas stations that are coming in. It's not anything that you and your department are going out to go get. I think that's very...
I don't necessarily think it's the actual land use. It's just that potential businesses will go through the process of I believe it's a CUP. In order to allow it, they're willing to go through the process and pay the money to try to change a land use or to allow that land use for a gas station.
Right.
To me, it's this parcel has been vacant for such a long time. They see an opportunity. They say, we can make money here, and they move forward.
I agree. That's 100%. I think getting to where my question really was at is our land use currently the permissible uses within certain zoning designations, creating the conditions to attract more of this type of business? If they're going through and I know we're going to have the land use conversation, Brian, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm very clear on the limitations of our economic development, or not limitations, but where you sort of stop in helping us continue to generate revenue, and then where we as planning folks are creating conditions to attract more business.
Yeah, in regards to zoning, just to add to that, so, yes, the zoning is what enables someone to apply for an entitlement and move forward. But like Miguel said this evening, just because it's zoned to allow a gas station doesn't mean that they want to go there. So one of the obviously key areas is along the I-10. It's a very popular area. It's very much conducive for gas stations. People kick it on and off. So in that sense, we have zoned appropriately zoned for gas stations. And we probably weren't going to get into that level of detail when we come back to with an analysis, because it could get to the point where we would have to hire outside help, a consultant, to do an in-depth analysis. I think, what will mainly be coming back later, not obviously tonight, is some options for the commission and then also for the council to consider on potentially limiting them, but not necessarily an in-depth study unless we're directed to do such, and then we'll go find some money.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what I'm asking, but they're coming into our mixed use zoning, right? It's a permissible use if they get a conditional use permit. So, and I know that it is because we just opened one up right across the street from JFK. So that's where my head is, to really understand where within our zoning have created the conditions to allow for these types of developments to get interest. So if they're doing this site selection that we were just shown, and then we have all of these different zoning conditions that have gas stations as a permissible use, then that's sort of where my head is at. I'm just walking you through where I'm thinking, but I think, I'm not asking for an in-depth study. I think it's just understanding. Now I understand where our economic development sort of, we're not going out there, we're not calling them. It sounds like it really is more on us.
Yeah, and if I may, the market, even if it wasn't allowed, we'd still get calls for a potential gas station at that exact location. So I don't think it's anything that you can create. It's really, truly just market demand. If I may, if we could go back to the slide, I did have one last one to kind of show where the people are getting the 7-Eleven that's right across the way, where people are coming from to shop at that 7-Eleven. And you see that dark red right in the middle? That is the neighborhood that's directly adjacent for them. Now, if you're coming out of that neighborhood, you go through Avenue 45, and then you have to make that left right before the light to get into that 7-Eleven. I can see that Maverick decided to select that site as a potential site because they saw this deep red from that community saying it's convenient while you're getting on the I-10 or wherever you're going to stop at a gas station right there. So let's make it easier to just pull right in, make the left at the light, and then make a quick right, and you're at the gas station.
And the blue dot is another gas station. That
is the 7-Eleven.
Right. So there's the Maverick across the street and the 7-Eleven across the street. So now there's two options for that red dot. Yep. Okay, and I'll give you a comment just really quickly. You said I'm interested in they're investing in our community. I'm interested in seeing how they're getting their money back. Are we tracking how much of that money stays outside of maybe just what we're tracking, which is revenue, tax revenue? These types of businesses, I'm sure that they're not local, maybe. So are we tracking how much of that money that they're getting back is coming and being reinvested back into the community?
No, that is left up to the individual business owner. Same thing goes to our small business owners. It doesn't necessarily mean they're reinvesting into the community, but usually when we track it by sales tax.
So I kind of think that this is really what we needed, right? We were all worried that the demand, at some point, we were going to end up with empty gas stations, right? Remember when the rules changed and we had all the old gas stations that couldn't be retrofitted, and then we ended up with these wonky-looking buildings all over town. So it sounds like the demand is here, and it's not going anywhere, at least not in the near future. So I think what, for me as a commissioner, when planning comes back to us, what I'd like to see is get a clear understanding of where it's allowed, where it needs a conditional use permit, where they're at, and then for us to come up with like our vision, and we can't control it all because it is market demand, right? They're not going to put a gas station here no matter how many times we ask them if the market demand isn't there, okay? But if we could control some of this, where do we think we would like to see more growth? And where would we like to not see more growth? Because maybe we feel there's already too many there, right? Because they do pollute the air. There's, you know, they're not they're not a green business, but they are definitely a needed business. So I think we maybe as a city, we can come up with a balance. How can we do this, provide this service, keep the sales and the tax dollars in Indio, but yet do it in a managed way that we control it as much as possible. And I kind of think that's where we are, because it is a market demand. No matter what we do, if there's no demand, they're not going to build it. No matter what we give them the land, they're not going to put it there. Okay, so I think that's maybe where our next step is, to come up with, and I think if we know what it is, the developers are also going to know what it is. So when they come in, they're going to say, oh, they've talked about this. This is what they want. Does this work? Because they're going to try to take the path of least resistance, right? Time is money. If they can get it through faster, it's better, and maybe it'll be better if we know what we're asking for. And I think for me, that's where the next step is. But this was perfect, Miguel. I really appreciate the numbers, because I didn't think there was this much demand. I was wrong. So now I feel better about the conversations that we'll be having in the future.
Thank you. Anyone else? So this is why there's 5 of us, and I don't agree with that. And I think it's our background, right? Wealth management. I do, you know, planning and social justice. So maybe I'm coming from a very different perspective. I think that what we need at the commission is really to understand how we are, one, how do we measure up to neighboring cities? How many gas stations do we have per capita in comparison to, let's say, La Quinta, in comparison to, say, Indian Wells, in comparison to, say, Coachella, right? Just around the area. I think that's a reasonable, just to understand, are we meeting more of the demand regionally in comparison to some of our other cities? I think the conversation is also similar to the way we talked about it with the storage facilities, where we said there are better land use, there are better land uses for the land use designation. I think that should also be part of it. I really am interested to know how many times we have added a gas station to a mixed-use zoning where intentionally it was zoned this way for commercial housing, to do more for your buck. And I remember when the gas station came up across the street from JFK, and I asked, and I said, is there any way to build up from what you have now? You know, I don't know that you would want to, but the reality is that this type of land use is very limiting. And if we're allowing it in places where we have set out to bring in more housing, to do more commercial, I think we might be denying ourselves from the opportunity of doing more, because we could still do commercial and still get some tax revenue and then provide some housing for some very serious housing needs. I was actually just sharing with our new commissioner, my mother just sold her house. She's going through a divorce, I'm oversharing, but she couldn't buy her way back into Indio. It's too expensive. And we've lived here always. And so there's a real need in the community for housing, and if our mixed-use zoning, just to use an example, I'm not trying to change that now, but just an example, is being used up by this type of development, then we are only creating more conditions for the gentrification that is being, that's happening in our community, the high cost of rent. And so I think this is part of a much larger conversation about development is coming. And I'm glad that you did bring the numbers. And I'm glad to learn that we're not actively seeking, they're just coming. I think that's important. I think you're doing a fantastic job because we've seen so much growth in the last few years. I think let's keep doing that. I think we should really analyze what types of developments do we want to attract? Are we just open up for anyone, or should we be looking at different factors that say, hey, maybe we should, take this type of land use and only allow this type of developments.
I think the only other thing with that is the planning commissioners could have an idea of what they want, but ultimately the experts, especially in the economical development, see a different way, and we may believe that there's a specific item or a specific type of development that will produce some type of tax revenue or profit, whatever. But at the end of the day, each industry is slightly different. And so I understand where you're coming from, but also I think by doing such would also put a hindrance and make it a little bit more difficult on some development, and the demand will continue to grow. And then at that point, let's say that 17.93 ends up becoming a $30-40 million demand, and now it's going to be harder to even lower that demand down, because once we get to that high demand, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Now we're going to have the director of economic development seeking them, because now we need it. And so it's just one of those things where if we can keep the demand to where it's at now and let them just come in versus us having to go out and now seek them, and now we're going to be forced to put them in places that initially we didn't want them, but now because the demand's there, we're going to have to put them there.
I would agree with that if I didn't drive around Indio often and know that there's no waiting time for any of the gas stations. In fact, most gas stations will have one person at a gas pump, and that's it. I think, yes, the market needs to be regulated. I don't think it's just like, let's let the market tell us how things should be done. That's just not how it works. I think we here have a responsibility, not to the market, but to the residents of the city. I think that's what land use really comes down to. I think it's not about, does the market tell us they want more of it? All right, let's open the door and then just let it happen. I think it's a question of where are they going? I was taken aback by the selection process even, because we know that they're going in communities that are already rent burden, low income, and those are part of the demographics that the market is looking at. They're saying, we're looking at what's the median household income? It's on there. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. You all saw the presentation. So I think that is the question for us. I don't think the question, we're not in the Economic Development Commission. I think, we're in the Planning Commission. I think the question for us is, are we creating the conditions to put gas stations in places that maybe they shouldn't? And I'm not saying that the answer today is, let's do one thing. We're not taking any action. This is just a study session, and this is just a deliberation, open discussion. But I think, this is where I'm coming from as far as direction to Brian, because Commissioner Franz said, here's what I think needs to happen. And what I'm saying is, I think we need to go a little further. I would like for us to understand where gas stations are in relation to what the Cal EnviroScreen is doing. Are we adding them in disadvantaged communities? So just to understand, how many gas stations do we have in total? How many have we had since we started this conversation in 2023? Because the article in 2023 was because we were starting to have this conversation. So how many gas stations have we allowed since then? And then, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So disadvantaged communities, how do we have? Oh, in the per capita comparison to surrounding cities. I think that's where I would like to see the presentation come back.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah, I also have one comment.
Okay, just one more thing. That map that you brought with that red spot, I'd love to see something like that for the whole city. Like where, if there's certain areas, where is that demand, right? And then in relation to where the current gas stations are, and if there are any that have applied or in the pipeline, and let's see where the demand is. Because I think has to be both sides. There has to be the community, because if we put in more housing, which I know we need, more houses bring more people, which brings more cars, which then, again, you need more gas stations. So it's kind of this revolving system, right? So I kind of want to make sure we understand where is that demand today, and where do we think those demands are going to be in the next few years? Because I think all of that is going to matter when we look at if we're going to make any land use recommendations to the city. I want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in order. Why are we making these recommendations? It has to meet economic sense. It has to make a sense for the community, what they need, what they want. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what we want. It's what the community wants and what they're asking for. So I really want to understand that.
And if we're going to go out of our way to understand the market, we should go out of our way to also understand the community perspective and maybe reach out to environmental groups, CBOs that are doing work around this topic, because it's important to know that this is happening across the entire state. This is not unique to us. And many other cities have had the same conversation and the same questions, and some have taken one direction, others have taken the other. But I think if we're really going to put this much emphasis in understanding the demand, because these numbers are coming from the market, they're coming from the people who are interested in putting more of these, right? So I also want to understand the other perspective. I want to understand, and not that I'm asking for us to go out there and do an audit of how many cars are pumping gas at each gas station, but let's talk about, do we need one gas station in front of the other like we just now recently approved? Do we need more gas stations in the types of communities where they have been going? And then the gap of where are they not and why are they not? What are the demographics of the communities that are not getting the gas stations? What is the income level? What is the race? So I think it's important to also understand that, because if the market is looking at certain demographics, they're targeting, there's very specific things that they're looking at. They're targeting certain demographics that are saying, this is where they go. And if they've been doing that in our city, and they've been choosing communities that we don't think they should be choosing, then I think we have a decision to make.
If I may. I kind of agree with your perspective. I also agree with Commissioner Fran's perspective. Thank you again for the presentation. I didn't, like Commissioner Fran said, I didn't think that it was such a big need here in the community. But I also think we have to be more intelligent of where they go, so that's why also I think that we should look into what other cities have they done, that have they put any policies in place, what other cities kind of close to us, close to India with the same population, because I know there's a conversation that other cities have done, right? So I think it would be smart for us to understand better what other cities have done, and that way we can maybe look into it and implement it. I don't want to completely ban gas stations because there's the need and we need the taxes. But at the same time, I think we can be more intelligent of where they go and what communities and what specific places in the community they go. So,
and if I may suggest, is that during that analysis, you don't necessarily look at cities like La Quinta next door to us, because they are not up against I-10 on both sides of it. You look at cities that do span both sides of a highway with a similar population and things like that, because it will be skewed. Obviously, more gas stations are going to want to go closer to I-10 than La Quinta, which is not necessarily on there. That is just to primarily serve the local community. Not just that, but City of Indio is unique, where we have a festival that brings in a whole lot of people, so that is also going to skew those numbers as opposed to La Quinta.
And just building upon that, if I may add, so good point by Miguel, but also in addition, what we'll look at is some cities, and I believe La Quinta, but I would have to double check, limit them at the number at an intersection. So that would be something that we'll also share with you. Some of the surrounding cities limited gas stations at intersections. So we'll definitely come back, and I'm taking good notes. So there's a lot that we can cover. There are some items that were brought up tonight that we may not be able to get into that level of analysis, but we will do our best when we return.
And then just one thing, in regards to the top of gas stations, each gas station tends to be different. They bring something different. Now, if we're talking, let's say AMPMs, do we need a lot of AMPMs? Potentially not, because there's a lot throughout the city already. In regards to Maverick, their biggest thing was diesel for the commercial side that the city currently doesn't have. Yes, there's diesel pumps, but they don't have them for the commercial, and having that Commerce Road right next to us, which is the 10, that brings a different view and a different type of business plan that different or business owners are bringing, and I think that's another topic that we also have to consider when it comes down to some of those things, where it's not the same thing, it's slightly different than the one across. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think if there are items that we're not going to be able to get, maybe we can do a call. I'm sure that there are groups and people who do this all the time who would be interested in submitting something. I'm already thinking about submitting something. So, so, you know, if there are folks out there who do this all the time and would like to submit things for us to review, this is a great opportunity to get some of this data that, you know, maybe we just don't have the bandwidth to take on. Well, thank you so very much for your presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time. We're really excited. We're really excited about all the growth that's happening. Thank you for your work. Truly, it's working. So keep at it.
Thank you to the council and the leadership, and it's part of our strategic area focuses for our strategic plan this year, or the next 5 years.
Yeah, thank you so very much. All right, Commissioner comments. Or do we have anything else that you wanted to add, Brian, before we move on from this
No, it's a
topic?
very good conversation, so we appreciate the commission and the input they've given, which is really kind of helps direct our efforts and our research and what we're going to bring back to you, and then ultimately the council. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Okay,
I have a fun one.
please.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have a fun report. You all know that I sit on the Coachella Valley History Museum's board. I think they're going to bury me there. But, so, just kidding, by the way. Nobody's trying to kill me. But we've been working on the 1950 stainless steel car for much longer than I ever anticipated when that project first started. We presented the interior design plan to the board last night, and we voted today to approve it. So now we know what it's going to look like. And all I can tell you is, wow, it has exceeded any possible dream that I have ever had for that car. Our next goal is to get the renderings ready to start to go out to the public, so you will see more information on this. And I'm not going to give you any more other than a teaser, but this is going to be a game changer for the museum and probably the East Valley, not just Indio. So keep an eye on that. If you're not a member of the museum, please consider joining. Thank you so much.
I do have a comment. Well, thank you, Commissioner Franz, for your work with the History Museum. If you guys haven't been there, it's a great, cool place with a lot of history of Indio and the Coachella Valley. So I recommend people to go and stop by. I also want to welcome our new commissioner, Commissioner Escarbo. She's been pretty quiet today, but it's understandable. She's a great person. I have the pleasure to work with her in another capacity with the Mosquito Control District. So I'm very happy and excited that she's here. So welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz, and this is probably the quietest I've ever heard you also.
Yeah, once again, thank you to the Indio staff for the report that was provided today. Thank you for Brian and your staff as well for the continual hard work that you guys do day in, day out. I know we only meet twice a month, but again, thank you. And again, welcome.
Yeah, I just want to say welcome. We're really excited to have a full commission, and we know your long history serving the city of Indio, and we're very excited to have you in this commission and to continue to work with you. So, yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I just want to say, the other day I went grocery shopping, and the woman who's taking I was in... well, I don't know if I can, it's not a plug, it's Stater Brothers off of Madison. And the woman who was ringing me up said, whatever Indio is doing, keep doing it. I went to the 4th of July event and it was the best thing. She said, the drone show was a little short because we waited for a very long time. We wanted it to be more than 10 minutes. And I said, okay, I'll pass on the message. But she's saying they're lifelong residents, and she just couldn't stop talking about how wonderful the city is moving. And so congratulations to our staff. I think it's a testament of where we are and all the hard work that you are all doing. So congratulations to you all, and thank you for all of your hard work. So, staff items.
Yes, I have a few items to report to the commission. And Megan, again, welcome. We had a nice conversation on Friday, so I'm wanted to welcome her. So there are a few items, and then one item that the commission needs to make a decision on. So the first item is the August 13th hearing. We don't have any items, but there is an applicant. If the commission would like to have it at the August 13th, if not, we can cancel and do the August 27th as a project consultation for Madison Point. So typically we try to kind of group those with public hearing items. But if you'd like to have that item on August 13th, we could. If not, we would cancel and go to the August 27th. We'll circle back with that in just a second. There's an upcoming Planning Commissioner workshop that I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of. I put a copy of the flyer on the dais so that you have that. It's only $75. The city will pay for it. It's a short 6 to 9 p.m. in Eastvale on September 4th. So if you're interested, let me know. We'll get you paid up, get you signed up. But I know, like, if Bacon's available, I think a great opportunity to get a workshop as a new planning commissioner. And then lastly, I just wanted to report that last week, the city council looked at our annexation study. It was a final study that they looked at, and it was received positively. They want to move on to phase 2, continue to study the potential to annex and potentially submit an application to LAFCO. So we're going to move to phase 2. And in addition, the council decided to expand the study area to add approximately 1,289 acres to the study area. So that would bring the whole study area, the Spear area, to 4,609 acres. So that's exciting because that's, long-term advanced planning that will be in the next 10 to 15 years in order to create more jobs in the city of Indio, because we need more jobs and more higher paying jobs. So they're looking at that area as an employment corridor. So just circling back, if you would like to keep the meeting, first meeting in August, even though we don't have any public hearing items, or if you would like to have a meeting on August 27th.
There seems to be a consensus for us not to have to meet on the 13th, so
Okay,
we'll see you
no
on
problem.
the 27th.
And the applicant's fine. I mean, I would press if the applicant had to be at that meeting, but whether it's the first meeting or the second meeting doesn't really matter, but because they're also already concurrently processing an entitlement for that project, but they want to look at the larger site and get some feedback from the commission. So we'll let them know. So we'll cancel the April 13th meeting, but the next meeting, if you could at the end, make that determination that the next meeting would be August 27th. That's all the items I have for staff.
All right, well, thank you so very much. We'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting to 25. Thank you, everyone.